Hey folks, Rick Carranza here. It's time for my final thoughts of the Anbernic RG556. Now, I've done two previous live streams on this device, one where I actually unboxed it and gave you that out-of-the-box experience with the pre-installed games and emulators. Another one a week later when I had tinkered around with it, played with it, installed my own ROMs and emulators, so you could see what it was like after that. And now that I've had a couple of weeks with it, where I've been playing with it in my own time, I just wanted to let you know what I think of it and whether or not you should get it. Now, before we go any further, by the way, I should let you know that I am really new to the world of retro handheld gaming. By the way, that's my dog down there. Say hello to Porthos. I've been doing retro gaming on my gaming PC, but I really wanted something that I could take out and about with me, and I wanted something that was like a PSP, but maybe a little bit more powerful. So all my thoughts in here are completely mine. This device, I bought with my own money. I wasn't sent by any of it. I mean, hint for the future, by the way. So if you do like this video, it's not sponsored, please consider liking it, and of course subscribe as well for any future content. So on with the review. So currently the RG556 is available on the Anbernic website for around $185. It's a little bit more if you purchase it with a memory card, but you can find it cheaper, which is what I did when I shopped around a little bit, found it on another site as well. And bear in mind, of course, the exchange rate from dollars to pounds. I bought mine in pounds, not in dollars. I did do a lot of research before I committed myself to the RG556, and there were three things that drew me to this: the ergonomics, the display, and the power. Now, I'm going to talk about those three things first of all, because those were the three concerns that I had, but I'm also going to talk about some of the other things that I liked with it, and some of the things that I don't really like about it, or I'm trying to get used to as well. So before we dive into that, we're going to have a quick overview of the specs of the RG556. I'll just bring them up on the screen now. It is powered by a Unisoc T820 octa-core processor. It has 8 GB of RAM, a quad-core Mali graphics, and it runs Android 13. This is really important for later on. Alongside 128 GB external storage, you can also insert a micro SD card up to 2 TB. It has a 5.48-inch AMOLED display, fan and active heat dissipation, Hall triggers and joysticks, and a 6-axis gyroscope. Connectivity-wise, it has Bluetooth 5 and Wi-Fi, and it also has a USB-C port that can support charging, but can also be used as a display port, so you can plug it into a TV or a monitor. Finally, there is a 3.5mm headphone jack on the bottom. However, because it has Bluetooth, I've been using it with my AirPods. Honestly, sounds amazing. Last thing, battery-wise, it's a 5,500 milliamp battery inside, which should give you roughly around 8 hours of battery life. Right, so let's start with the three reasons that I purchased this handheld console. Number one, ergonomics. The RG556 is an extremely comfortable handset, especially for long gaming periods. The grips on the rear device are just the right size, and the button layout means that I'm never overstretching for any button. I can literally play for hours without my hands cramping up. However, because of the size of it, because of these inbuilt grips, it does mean that it's not pocketable. So it is difficult to take on the go, but I mean, the trade-off between taking it around with you versus comfortability, it's a worthwhile trade-off. Next up is the display. Now, the RG556 has a 5.5-inch AMOLED display, and honestly, out of the box, I was wowed straight away. It's really bright, the colors are really rich, the blacks are really inky. It's 1080p, and I swear that every game that I've played looks like it's a remastered version. It's such a shame that the quality of the screen can't be picked up on the camera, because that alone is worth the price of this device. Last but not least, power. Now, what was really important to me, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of buying a handheld console, is I wanted to play at least PSP games on it. But what I found is that the processor and the graphics handle not just PSP games, but PS2 and even some Wii games as well. Now, it's not perfect. There are some issues, and you have to play around with what sort of resolution you want to play in. But honestly, I love the fact that I can just pick this up and play a quick game of Mario Kart Wii, one of my favorite versions of Mario Kart, and it handles it just fine. So let's move on to other things that I like about this handheld. I like the build quality. It feels premium. Now I got the black version and it feels like a really good substantial weight in my hands without being too heavy. And I really love the LED lights around the joysticks as well. It doesn't feel like a cheap plastic. However, I will say it does pick up the fingerprints, which that's not going to affect your gaming, but it doesn't mean that you're wiping it down quite a bit to keep it clean. Generally, I think the device is really, really responsive. Android 13 runs fantastically on it. It's really smooth when you're swiping between screens or if you're selecting things, it's really responsive. Lastly, the battery life has been really good as well. I've been playing it for a couple of hours at a time and never found that I've been draining the battery too quickly. Neither does the battery drain too much when it's asleep. So again, I can leave it for sleep for a while, pick it up, have a couple of hours play. And I've generally found that I'm charging it maybe every few days. I have been playing it that much. Now, overall, my experience with this device has been positive, but that's not to say it's without its problems. First of all, I don't like what Anbernic installs on the device. The out-of-the-box experience, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. They have the emulators you need. It has some games. I got a memory card, as I mentioned earlier, which had about 4,500 games on it. What I found was that actually quite a few of those games were mislabeled. They were wrong, or there was something wrong with the ROMs, like they weren't saving the games correctly or something like that. So what I ended up doing is, because it runs Android 13, I was able to actually customize my experience. So I managed to take off all the emulators, install the ones that I wanted, put in Digisho, which is a lovely front end for your games, and it just looks a little bit better. Now, Anbernic has its own front end, which you can access by pressing the button on the bottom left. But again, I just prefer having a different front end, the Anbernic one. Not really enjoying it. That is an advantage that you can do that. But if you are looking for a device that you just want to be able to pick up, then yes, you can, but it's not ideal. Now, if you are wanting to customize your experience, I'm going to put in the description below the guides that I use. So big thanks to Joey's Retro Handhelds and to Retro Gamecore, who have created fantastic guides that you can use for setting up your Android devices. Now, the last issue I had, and when I say it's an issue, I think it's something that I will get used to over time, is the controls itself. Mainly the joysticks and the buttons. Starting with the buttons, I found the buttons are, if I'm honest, a little close together. I don't know, I've probably got a really big thumb or something like that. So initially when I started playing on this device, I found myself pressing multiple buttons at the same time. However, I will say as time has gone on, I have gotten used to the button layout, the button size, and it's not so much of an issue anymore. So when I say it's a problem, it was kind of more a me problem than a device problem. However, the joysticks. Now, the joysticks are in a great position, and overall the joysticks are okay for most games. However, one of the other reasons I bought this device was the ability to use Xbox Games Pass for game streaming on it. And I found that some of the games that I played, for example, Battlefront 2, the joysticks aren't exactly the most responsive. They tend to snap to one position or the other. It's quite hard to get sort of those fine controls on there. Now, I don't know if this is something that I can fix within the software. I believe I can also change out the joysticks, but I don't think I've got the experience to be able to do that. But it is just something to be aware of. As I say, generally, most games will play fantastic with these joysticks, but it can be with those sort of FPS games, first-person shooters, it can be a little bit temperamental. Taking this all into account, is the Anbernic RG556 something that I would recommend? Absolutely, but bear in mind, this is coming from someone who's completely brand new to the handheld space. But honestly, as an introduction to this space, this is fantastic. I've really enjoyed playing around with it. It's great to sort of pull out and be able to play some of these retro games, and it's really powerful. And that screen, as I said, is absolutely gorgeous. So thank you for watching my review of the Anbernic RG556. If you've enjoyed this video, please feel free to hit the like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing loads of geeky content on here, not just reviews of retro handheld stuff, but also diving into Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, and other things as well. I'm also aiming for 500 followers, so please help me get to that. So thank you again for watching, and see you next time.